Good morning, everybody. My name is David. I'll be sharing with you a little bit about Apple and more in depth, more specifically speaking, the viability of the company over not only the short term but the long term. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive in here. The Apple back in 1976, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs actually founded Apple. So it's a relatively new company. It hasn't been around for an incredibly long time, but it has made waves. And one of the quotes that Steve Jobs, the founder, was coined for saying was to make a contribution to the world by making tools for the mind that advances humankind. That was the mission behind Apple when it first started. Apple since then has obviously grown. In 1977, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak had pooled all their resources together to build the very first color display for Apple's it was kind of a retro new idea where they actually used colored plastics to create the displays. And from that point on, they actually gained notoriety as a very unique, very individualistic, expressive tech company, which they still actually hold that title today. Very much known for that, very much known for those attributes. So it appealed to the average person as well as the businessman alike, and it could meet their needs. Now, Steve Jobs recognized that funding had to be secured, and advertising and PR was crucial to this. So he went out and he actually hired two individuals, one by the name of Regis McKenna and the other one by the name of Michael McCullough. Each were prospective experts in their field. One was a PR expert, and the other one was actually a previous Intel executive that he actually brought over and convinced to invest in his company. And from there, they used that startup money to grow and grow into multiple different sectors, from the business to the personal, and then finally the educational environment, because he recognized that there was a lot of need in that educational sector. So he really advanced in those areas. Now, fast forward to current day, obviously Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak never once considered that their business would be worth billions of dollars. By the year 2000, they were estimating net profits about 786 million. And then you fast forward on beyond that to present day here, and you have their modern day success. So to kind of put that in perspective, we have 2018 revenues looking at $62.9 billion in revenue. That's incredible. That's an incredible amount of money. That's as much as some small countries. And they also had stock dividends of an impressive 23.69% yield, which is an amazing performance for that end quarter of 2018. So kind of taking you on that progression from when they first started to modern day, they've made an amazing name for themselves. And they still stuck to that same niche product group. They very, very niche, very individualistic attributes. They've stuck with everything they've had since day one. Those core attributes, they've stuck with them. If anything, they've refined them. So they still make those same personal products have evolved. So you have the MacBook, you have the iPad, you have the iPhone, you have the AirPods. They're all products that meet the needs of business owners, educators, and personal users. And they've all revolved around those spheres. It's only grown and evolved with the advancement in technology. That core group has always been the same for Jobs and his company. Well, now Tim Cook, but previously it stayed the same consistently. So kind of diving into the biggest competitor of Apple, we have Samsung. Now, this is the representation that I use for many of the other tech giants that would be competing against Apple. I mean, there are many. There's Lenovo, there's LG. There's plenty of other tech giants that would be competing, but Apple is by far the most similar and the most influential. Most of their products are they offer a range of products, but a lot of their products are also aimed at competing directly with Apple and gaining their market share. So as we can see, looking at 2018 here, and their losses here for 2018 were about 39.4 billion in stock capital, and then also it's about 11% decrease, and it's just the largest that it was for any tech company in 2018. So clearly, Apple has definitely taken some of that market share, and they've held on to it, and they've grown. And while it may not be the same size as Samsung in terms of market share, their revenues outpaced Samsung as well as many other tech companies for 2018. So even though their market share is smaller, their revenues and their ROI are greater. So just kind of putting that in perspective there. So, and in most of this, I would have to say, comes down to a couple different factors here, and I'd like to go over the SWOT analysis for Apple. So, as you can see here, there's a vast amount of the strengths, the opportunities, and the weaknesses and the threats for that SWOT analysis. But really, what those boil down to are the strengths as customer loyalty, quality products, and strong financial status. Opportunities, expanding product line, exploration of new, well, warm markets, I would say, not cold, but warm markets, focus on firm-owned manufacturing, and then weaknesses, high pricing and limited software capability, and then threats would be pricing pressures and improving competitor products. So these all kind of come together to create a relatively basic picture of where Apple currently stands in terms of their their business standpoint here. So if we look at the customer loyalty, this is created because they have an amazing marketing team that goes above and beyond anything and everything they could potentially want to do in terms of returns, because they build that brand loyalty and they build that customer loyalty. This only works if you have quality products that you're on par with. So you have the quality products that you're on par with. I mean, everything about their products, everything that goes into making them is top of the line. It's cutting edge. They ensure that everything that they create meets that level of excellence that they've set for themselves. And then this in turn has created a very strong financial status for them, as we previously discussed. Now, opportunities, the product line is relatively niche. Like I said before, that's also gained a lot of market for them, but I think there could be a lot of market opportunity if they were to kind of expand outside of that realm, maybe compete in a couple other levels. If they were able to deliver the same quality that they have in their products currently, but deliver that on several other fronts to maybe compete with Samsung, maybe in the realm of TVs or, a couple other areas, then that would potentially be an expansion opportunity for them, or even just offering a lower cost line. So there are a couple different things, and we'll dive into those here. Exploration of new markets. There's been a very large surplus or a very large push in evolving markets like India and others like India that are really growing in their economic status in the world. And Samsung and other Chinese manufacturers have done a fantastic job of targeting them and creating a market share. Apple has not. They their price points are a bit too high for those areas for the most part, and they haven't done a really great job of targeting those markets. So what could happen there is potential market loss, and we'll kind of go into that here in a moment, and then focusing on firm-owned manufacturing, which is due to the fact that Apple doesn't own most of their manufacturing services. Weaknesses, high price, limited software capability. That has to do with the iOS closed loop system, which Apple is the only proprietor and creator of their software, and they don't allow third-party vendors to have any sort of compatibility with it. That could potentially be a weakness. I would argue it could be a strength as well. We're going to go with weakness for this presentation due to the fact because it does cost them market share. And then also a high price, which we've covered. The pricing pressures and improved products of the competitors here. Samsung offers, just as an example's sake here, because they're the most comparable in the tech industry, is they offer a lot of products that are very much on par with what Apple offers in terms of quality. However, their price is lower. So that's a huge threat to Apple and their market share. So what we would really want to dive in here and look at, especially as an investor or a senior manager, is you want to look at all these and kind of get like a holistic view of what this could mean for the company currently, as well as down the road. So in order to really get a full picture of this, what we're going to have to do is break down the external of the SWOT analysis here and then the internal. So in order to become competitive with Samsung on multiple levels, we're going to have to implement a very strong strategy. Now, Apple is a company that believes in internal success creates external success. So they are very synergistic. They believe in collaboration. They believe in bringing new ideas, and kind of everything is on the floor in terms of potentials for the company to use. And this is vital. And I think that they could really use this in their analysis of how they could compete with Samsung and other Chinese or other tech companies on the global standpoint. So looking at what we've had in the SWOT analysis here, and then also Apple's ability to really involve their team in the creation of their new products and lines, I would say that we have a couple different things that we could implement here with Apple. So the first would be the using of capital to expand their product lines into new markets and using loyal customer endorsements. This would be vital, and these are all going to tie together here. So the next one would be Apple must use brand name loyalty to endorse higher prices, selling experience, not the specs. Also another key point for their success in the coming days here. Um, we also have further focusing on investing in lines of products that have the essence of Apple with a smaller price tag. So again, something else to take a look into, maybe appeal to a lower or a more price conscientious purchaser. And then Apple must focus on selling the iOS ecosystem versus the price point, the user experience as a defining factor here. So really what we're looking at is in essence here is that Apple has to, in order to compete with Samsung in the coming days and really get into those markets, is they must use their name. They should roll out a more price conscious product line that could appeal to those, up and coming market areas, which would give them a name and a foot in the door so that Samsung and the other providers aren't the only names that are known in those areas. Because if that happens and they become far more influential, then their market share and their influence could overshadow Apple. And that obviously is not something we want. So that could be something that Apple could take into consideration. And the big price point here is because their prices are so much higher, is they're going to want to sell the user experience. Samsung's tech specs are very comparable to Apple's, but really what they're going to want to sell is the fact that Apple's user experience is far more fluid, and their ecosystem, their closed loop ecosystem, actually creates a more refined, user-friendly experience that makes spending that extra money worthwhile. So essentially, and this is something that they could kind of implement in the first 2 quarters of 2019 and then roll out with their 2019 unveiling in the fall, as they per usual. And these success based off of these implementations could be measured against the profits of the competitors. So if we see that they're doing comparably well, or if not better, then clearly this is working. If not, adjustments may need to be made. So this is kind of the overall overview of what we'd be looking at in terms of Apple, the tech company, its competitors, as well as kind of where their SWOT analysis and their TOES analysis would want to be taking them down the road in order to ensure that they meet the coming demand and that they stay relevant in coming days. Now, I would like to direct and open the floor for any questions. Thank you, and you have a wonderful rest of your evening. I appreciate your time.